What's up guys, Luis here from Alibi Security, and today I'm going to show you how to configure and set up the Vigilant 12 megapixel fisheye camera. This camera does come with the capability to break out those 4 PTZ views and also add them to individual channels on your NVR. Keep in mind that we also do sell a 5 megapixel fisheye camera, but that camera does not have the capability to break out those PTZs and put them into individual channels. Before we get started, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you can get notified when new videos are available. Let's get started. So getting started, I have a 16 channel Vigilant NVR and I connected the 12 megapixel fisheye camera to port number 1 and I'm waiting for it to auto populate. Just to let you know, in order to do this whole process, you will need a computer that is on the same network as the NVR, so you can configure the camera and the NVR in order to get those extra PTZ views. So I will be switching from the local interface over to the web browser interface to continue the configuration, and most likely probably stay in the web browser from that point forward, so I can show you guys how to configure the PTZ camera. So as you can see here, the camera did populate onto port number 1. And if I go back to my live view there, you will see the camera is there. So let's go back into the menu where you can see the camera. So this is good news, right? So you got the camera, you connected to your port, it did populate, it is connecting. So what we need to do now is change the camera mode so we can add those extra PTZ views. And on top of that, add them to individual channels on the 16 channel NVR. So the only way you can do that is through the web browser, because you have to access the camera's web page in order to change the camera configuration. So it does change the different mode from the single fisheye view to the fisheye plus the 4 PTZs. So what I'll do here is I will log directly into the recorder at this point. So if I go to my network here, you can see that my address is 192.168.1.30. So I will open a web browser and go to that address. Once that page is up, I'm going to log in. All right, so if I start the camera here, you notice that I do still have that same fisheye view. So what we want to do here is go to setup. And on the left hand side, we want to go to camera. Camera 1 does show an online status. So we'll go to access here on the right hand side. And that's going to open up the web page for the camera. Going to type in admin, and then the default password to the camera is 123456. I'm going to hit login here. It's going to prompt you to create a new password, so I'm going to go ahead and put the old password in. Then I'm going to put the new password in, which is whatever you would like. For me, this is ABCD1234 exclamation point. I wouldn't recommend using that password, but this is for testing purposes. So the email, we can uncheck that. I'm going to uncheck it. If you feel like you need that option to do password recovery, go ahead and select it. I'm going to hit OK here. While this is refreshing, we're going to go back to the recorder. So what we want to do here, since we just changed the password on the camera, we want to make sure to update those settings in the NVR. So we'll hit modify. We're going to switch this to IP address. All the settings are the same other than the password. So I'm going to go ahead and type that new password there, ABCD1234 exclamation point, and I'm going to hit save. All right, so that's going to keep that camera online there. Let's let it refresh for a second. Okay, so that is online. So now we'll just go ahead and log into the camera with that new password you created. And there's going to be a whole lot going on here. You're going to see operation mode on the left and you're going to see preview mode on the right. Preview mode is pretty much what it's called. It is a preview of different views you can have of the camera. On the left hand side, the operation mode is exactly what the recorder will see if you're trying to change the mode from the original image, which is like the fisheye view, and then you have the fisheye plus 4 PTZs. That's exactly what we're looking for in this case. On the right hand side, you can change the preview modes, but this does not change how the camera is being recorded. This is only for kind of like a temporary preview. You can kind of change the views, move them around, things like that. But this will not change anything to do with the recorder. So even if I go back to the recorder here, you'll notice that it just still has that circle fisheye view. Nothing has changed. If you want to make those changes, you have to make them under the operational mode. So if we go back to live view here on the camera, operation mode, let's put this back to the original image. Under display mode, we want to change that to fisheye plus 4PTZ. And when you do that, this actually changes the camera to have extra channels on the camera. So when it's on the original mode, you only have one channel on the camera and you can only add it to one channel on the NVR. When you switch it to fisheye plus PTZ, you actually have 5 channels are created on that camera. And I'm going to show you how to add those 5 channels to the NVR right now. So we'll click on back to the NVR. Just going to go ahead and stop this. I'm going to go to setup. Go to camera. And this method here that I'm showing you, there are different ways you can change the mode on the camera and add it to the NVR. But this is going to be the most common way. I would assume that most of you guys are going to grab the camera, plug it into a port. All I can tell you is that make sure you have the additional channels available on your NVR to dewarp those extra PTZ views into channels, right? Okay, so starting with camera 2, we're going to select it and hit modify. Switch it to IP address. We're going to type the address of the camera, which is 100. We're going to type the password of the camera. Then I'm going to switch the remote ID to channel 2. I'm going to hit save here. And then I'm going to continue that same process for channels 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so now all 5 channels are up. We have the fisheye here and then the 4PTZ views. Okay, so now if I go to live view and hit the start all live view button down here on the bottom, you'll notice that all these cameras start up. And so you have the 360 view here in channel 1, and then these other 4 PTZs are actually, you can actually move these cameras around. I like using the PTZ remote on the right hand side. So if I select this camera here, number 2, and I can use the PTZ remote to move this camera around, as you can see. Let's say I kind of want a straight on shot. It's about good right there. And I can also zoom in. I don't get too far in there, but and this can be done from the camera as well. So if I wanted to make these changes here on the camera level, I can use the arrows here to kind of adjust the PTZ. And these 2 here, I can bring this one like that. I guess you kind of get the idea here. These cameras, each one of these views can be set to whatever you would like in a specific application. Obviously, I only have kind of like a 180 view here, so a lot of these are facing the same direction. But this can be configured from here on the web browser. You can do the PTZ motion from the local interface as well. As a matter of fact, I might just switch over there real quick. And here, if you see, I have the 8 window. Let's see what else we got here. 6 windows. That if I do select one of these PTZs here, I can hit the PTZ control. Let me log in real quick. And it will bring the remote up, and I will be able to move this camera using the PTZ control. Let me lower my speed here a little bit. So yeah, this can be, you can move this from the unit as well. So let's go back to the live view there. So overall, adding this fisheye camera to the 16 channel unit, there is a little bit of configuration involved, but in the end, it's not very difficult. As long as you have a computer that's connected to the same network as the NVR, You should have no issues de-warping these cameras and getting them into individual channels. I think overall the most important thing to do here is to make sure that you have those individual channels available on your NVR. So when you do set the camera mode to fisheye plus 4 PTZs, you do have the available channels on your recorder to add those PTZ views to. So adding this camera to a 16 channel plug and play unit still has some manual configuration involved, but it's still a pretty easy process. Now I'm going to show you how to add this camera to a 32 channel NVR, which means both the camera and the NVR are going to be connected to the same local network. Keep in mind that some of our larger channel count NVRs do have more options when using the Fisheye camera in live view and playback. So let's get right into that, and I'll kind of cover that during this demo. So now I'm going to show you how to add the camera through a network using the 32 channel unit. So this unit does not have any PoE ports on the back. So what we need to do here is connect the camera to a PoE switch that is on the same network as the NVR. And it's going to be a really simple process to add this camera and the PTZ views to these channels. Keep in mind that using this method will depend on the type of NVR that you have. Typically, NVRs with higher channel counts will have these options. You may not see the same option in NVRs with lower channel counts. So here I'm just at the main screen of the NVR. I'm going to right click on the screen and go to menu. So once you're in the camera menu, you'll notice that it does detect the camera on the network. So this camera is not added to any of the channels right now. So what I'm going to do here is just hit the add button, and then I'm going to hit the OK option. And that will add that camera specifically to the DVR. So now that the camera is online, we're going to go back to the main live view, and you notice that it does have that fisheye camera there in the left hand corner, channel 1. But now what we're going to do is change it to where we can have the fisheye plus the 4 PTZ views. And this is a super simple process using these larger units. So we'll go back to the menu. And if you notice on top here, you'll have a fisheye tab. And in here, it does have the fisheye camera listed. We can hit the edit option. And you can change the mount type as well. So this is not a ceiling mount. We'll do wall mount. Angle of view, we don't need to mess with that, but the fisheye mode is what's really important here. So if I click this, you'll notice that automatically you can switch those operational modes directly from the NVR. So I'm going to put it to fisheye plus the 4 PTZs. And you can get to choose if you don't want to have all 4, you can actually choose what channels you want to add, but we're going to leave all those checked, so we're going to have a total of 5 channels. We'll hit apply here. And that is switching those modes. Alright, so now that I kind of refresh the screen there, you'll notice that all of them did pop up for the blue status here, which is great. That's exactly what we're looking for. So now if I go to the live view, you'll notice that I do have the fisheye plus the PTZ views. Let me change this to a 6 window here. And if you use the PTZ control, you will be able to adjust these views accordingly. Something a little better looking than what's there right now. Actually, let me change this under the fisheye. We're going to change this over to ceiling mount, and we'll apply that, and that'll kind of shift around the image so we can view it a little better. So when you're changing those options under the fisheye tab, it's literally the same thing as logging directly into the camera through a web browser and adjusting the operation modes. All right, so they're starting to come back online. Okay, so now they're all back online. So let's go back to the live view, and you can see that it does have a little bit of different view. Let me adjust the PTZ on this guy, get away from this rail. That looks a lot better there. And this one here. So pretty much you have full PTZ options here when you're using this fisheye camera. You can even use the zoom function as well. All right, so we'll zoom in on that one. And Not going to spend too much time messing with these. These obviously can be set to whatever you would like. Just kind of show you that there is plenty of options when it comes to using these PTZs. You can set them kind of wherever you would like. Zoom in and out, things like that. This process is very simple. You literally hit the plus button, go to the fisheye tab, change it to fisheye plus the 4 PTZs, and you're good to go. Another cool feature with the larger units, including this 32 channel, is the fisheye option during live view. So when you're in live view like this, and you do have the fisheye camera, this channel 1 here, if I double click it, you'll notice as in the sub menu here, you'll have a fisheye option, and you can actually change the preview modes of this channel right here, right? So this is not going to change anything to do with the fisheye plus the 4 PTZs, the operational mode. Earlier in the video when I mentioned the preview mode versus the operational mode, this tab here is going to be changing the preview mode. So this is not going to be changing anything, how it's being recorded or anything like that, but it does give you the option to kind of de-warp in the live view setting. And this is all contained within one channel here. So if I change it there and I double clicked it, you'll notice that it's all contained within channel 1 here. And these are still PTZ control. These will basically give you kind of views of your PTZs. If I go back to the fisheye mode here, I can kind of have it all in one. It's almost like a spot out where you have like everything kind of like a channel 0, all the views into one image. It's really up to you on how you want to adjust those. I would say it's more convenient if you're just using the fisheye only. You can still break it up and view these different views while you're in live view. I'm just going to go back to the fisheye option there. So moving on, we'll just do a little bit of playback. So if I go down here to the menu and go to playback, it's going to show you that you do have some options here in playback as well. So if I click, see this is camera 1 playing back now. If I click in here, I do have the fisheye module as well. And I can switch those views while I am in playback. So if I wanted to have these different views during playback, I can do that as well. And I'm going to switch over to the web browser. There's a lot of cool options as well there. Keep in mind that some of these larger channel count units do have these extra features that you can use to de-warp these kind of like from a software standpoint, from a processing standpoint, while you're doing live view or playback. You won't see a lot of these options on the smaller 8 and 16 channel units, but that's because the processing power of the unit is not capable of doing these kind of features. So now we're logged into the web browser of the DVR itself. Obviously you can see here that if I hit start, I do have my PTZs, and you can control that as well from here using the PTZ panel on the right hand side. But moving over to playback, this is where it gets kind of cool when you're using the web browser with these larger channel units. It gets a lot easier to get like a lot of cool features here in the web browser. So if I want to play back camera 1, which is the fisheye view, we'll just go ahead and hit play here. And on the right hand side, if I open this panel here, I can change the display mode. And let's say I want to change it to the fisheye in the middle plus the extra PTZ views. But if you notice, when I move my mouse around these extra views, I do see a little small box that shows up in the middle, kind of showing where that camera view is. While this is playing back, I can drag this around. See that? And I can actually change these views on recorded footage. So I can kind of click around and move these views watching the playback footage. So it's a super cool feature. This was earlier, so I can follow this. You know, if I was following a person there, I can follow them in the playback. I think this is a super cool feature. It really plays off of the actual fisheye view. What's really happening here is that these individual channels are actually recording the entire fisheye view, and you can move those around during playback. Let's try to change the view here. So this one here, you have a 3 PTZ and the fisheye. So these big, large options here, you can move these around. If you zoom the scroll in and out on the mouse wheel, it'll make those options larger here. Same thing here, I can move this around in Playback. So this was about 10 or 15 minutes ago here in the Alibi Security offices. So yeah, doing Playback on the web browser, specifically when you're using these preview modes, is pretty beneficial overall. I think it has some really cool features, and gives you the options to kind of drag and move those PTZ views around. It's a really smart feature to have on these fisheye cameras. And not only do you get the individual fisheye, but you get the PTZ views as well. And then during Playback on these larger channel units, you do have the option to change these preview modes, move these cameras around in live view, and also during Playback, you still have the option to move those PTZ channels and view extra areas that possibly they weren't focused on initially. So I really hope this helps you in the field while you're setting this camera up, either if you're using the plug and play method or if you're going through a local network. But as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our tech support team for more information. Also, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you can get notified when new videos are available.